Hello. I've been imagining over the last few minutes a scene of people gathering from north and south, east and west, from every direction to a forest clearing. Um, this is partly to assuage any sense of nervousness or weirdness I might have in just sitting here in front of my computer and talking apparently to myself and to a machine, when in fact I know that there are lots of people out there. But it's also because this is something that we do in the physical world as well. And so when we meet together at a Druid camp, say, or at a gathering, people literally come from different directions into the clearing, this lovely place, the sacred grove, this place of meeting together. And that's really, I thought, would be a good starting place for us to explore the nature of reality, really. Because what is real? Is reality the fact that I'm sitting here on my own in this room talking to some plastic and metal? Is that the reality? Or is the reality that I'm talking with lots of people all over the world? I think there's nothing worse than a kind of pompous approach to spirituality, a sort of piousness and all the rest of it. I think it's important to be relaxed and I'm not too serious about these things. And in fact, I think the best way to approach serious topics is with a lightness and an ability to see the light side of things as well as the serious side of things. And so let's take a few moments. Here we all are, this group of people all over the world, sitting in front of bits of plastic and metal and glass. And yet, if we close our eyes, we can have a sense that we are gathering in a sacred grove, in a clearing in the forest, engaging in this time-honored practice of coming together as human beings to explore the wonders and mysteries of life and to explore ideas together. So I thought, let's start at a beginning, if you like, and say, as our topic for this evening, let's ask ourselves, what might be the most important step and the foundational step that we could take as a magician, as indeed a person in this world? And what I'm going to suggest is the most important step is finding the right stance, the right point of view. And now immediately I think when I say that, even to myself, there's a sense of disappointment. Oh, I thought you were going to talk about carving a wand or some extraordinary exotic ritual or ceremony or philosophical position that one must adopt. What I'm going to suggest to you is that I think the most important preliminary step we can take is to find our point of view, our stance vis-a-vis the world and vis-a-vis ourselves. If you or I were going to a martial arts class, to a Tai Chi class, to a Qigong class, even to a class of sophrology, which is a mind-body training system that I've trained in, what would be the first step? The first step we would be told how to stand. Literally, we would be taught how to stand, the position to take. And everything depends upon that, the particular position you adopt. Now, if you take that idea at a philosophical level and a psychological level, what it's suggesting is that the most important thing to do is to get our understanding of life, how we relate to life, clear. Now, you might say, well, this is a big subject and that is dependent on so many things. And of course, that's true. But what I'd like to suggest is just one way of looking at it, which I have found helpful, which comes from philosophy. And that is the distinction between idealism and materialism. I put very simply, lots of ways you can talk about this, but I talked about it in one specific way. It goes like this. If you're a materialist, a reductionist, you believe that consciousness is a byproduct of electrical signals, essentially chemical behaviors in matter. So the prime reality is matter. And there are nervous systems, and those nervous systems produce what we call consciousness as a byproduct. So it's sometimes referred to as an epiphenomenon of neural activity. That's the materialist view. If you take the idealist view, it's completely different. It turns that whole picture upside down, and it says, no, no, no. The prime reality is consciousness. That's the basis. And within this great, vast field of consciousness, there is matter, universe, the stars, physical bodies that are precipitates, that are a small part of consciousness. So you see a completely different view. So you would say that the physical world is contained within the heart of the goddess, the mind of God. And the spiritual worldview tends to be idealist. Of course, you could attempt to fuse the two, but let's keep it simple for tonight. The idealist point of view says the physical world, everything that I see around us, is actually made up of energy. And if I explore the nature of that energy, in fact, it's coming from consciousness. Now, that's the position I adopt. That's the position I love. And what I'd like to suggest is that it's the most pragmatic. By pragmatic, I mean it's the position that has the most beneficial effects on our minds and our hearts and our bodies. And this is why we might choose to follow a spiritual path with that particular point of view. Two examples spring to mind. One is a wonderful man called Viktor Frankl, who was a psychologist who was in the concentration camps during the war. And he observed his fellow inmates. And he noted how the people with beliefs in life after death, with idealist beliefs, that matter is a byproduct of consciousness and not the other way around, they survived better than those who didn't. And now more recently, there's been an extraordinary study, which I mentioned in my blog the other day, by the American Psychological Association, a study of 61,000 people. And they discovered, in a nutshell, that the people who believed they weren't getting enough exercise didn't live as long as the people who believed they were, regardless of the amount of exercise that was taken. Extraordinary, fascinating finding, which of course supports ideas of mind over matter and the placebo effect and all the rest of it. And I think one of the difference between perhaps, say, scientists, materialists, and say people of a magical persuasion is this: rather than dismissing it as a placebo effect or seeing it there in a box, we say, yes, how exciting and extraordinary that the mind is so powerful. And let's adopt beliefs that empower us and infuse us and keep us living longer, because the bottom line is we may never know what is true until after we die. But since the evidence shows, the scientific evidence shows, that there is this extraordinary positive effect from adopting views like this, let's do that. So this idea that I started with of our position being of vital importance, this really strikes at the heart of things, I think, that we choose a particular philosophy, we choose a way of looking at the world. And if we focus now on Druidry and we say, well, what position are we adopting here? Well, the Druid believes in the sacredness of life and of nature, of the importance of cyclicity of the teachings that nature brings to us, the law of the harvest, the importance of honoring the cycles in our own psyches and bodies and in nature and so on. These are ideas that empower us and enliven us, and therefore we choose to adopt them. But here comes an interesting little detail, which is that our position is an intellectual one, but also comes from our feelings. There's no point in telling ourselves that we feel that life is worthwhile when in our heart or our gut we feel it's not worthwhile. In other words, if our heart isn't in it, if our feelings aren't congruent with whatever thoughts we choose to adopt. And that's the tricky one, because you could listen to me now and say, yes, okay, you're right. You've shown me this scientific evidence about belief and how powerful it is. I will adopt those beliefs from now on. But if you, in your heart, you don't really feel it, it's not going to be so effective. So how do we change our hearts? Well, this is where, in my mind, the spiritual discipline and psychotherapy actually come into play. This is why I think it's important to have a psychological understanding. Yes, I think that's the great gift that psychology can bring. It can shine a light of science and of understanding into spiritual practice that is maybe thousands of years old. So I think psychotherapy is hugely valuable, especially of the kind informed by a spiritual perspective, and psychological insights generally. And then when you marry those with a spiritual understanding, with spiritual traditions, spiritual insights, that's when I think you have just a fantastic combination that has the possibility and the ability to change our hearts as well as our minds. And that's why I follow a spiritual path, is because it works not only on my mind introducing ideas to me, but it works on my emotions as well. And those of you who are following the OBOD course, for instance, will know how it affects our feelings as well as our thoughts. So I see here great questions and comments coming up here. Magdalene is saying, is age important? Start young, ? Well, I think, the lovely thing is it's lovely reading. I get to read the Druid reviews, people who've been working with the Order's training for years. And so I have the privilege of reading their reviews and of the sort of experiences they've had. And often people will have come to a spiritual perspective quite late in life. Some people come really early, some people come late. And so I don't think actually age is important. We shouldn't feel handicapped by our youth or by our age. I think what is important to understand is that every age has its challenges. The sorts of challenges you're going to be having spiritually, emotionally, mentally, but also physically in your outer circumstances, as well as your body, are going to be related to your physical age. And so understanding the cycle of our life too. Some people won't accept the fact that they're growing old and they behave like young people when actually that's incongruent and it looks uncomfortable and it feels uncomfortable. So knowing about life cycles, I think, is a huge part of it. I've talked about getting your perspective, getting your position vis-a-vis the world, of how central and important that is to have kind of the right perspective. And then I talked about how it was important to align our feelings with our ideas and our minds. Now, I'm just talking about us, me, you. Is it just a selfish thing? Is spirituality just for our own development? Well, no, you see, I don't think it is. I think that at its heart, following a spiritual path, taking the way that I think we are all walking in our own individual ways, the way of personal development and spiritual development, I think we're doing it for two reasons I'd like to suggest. One is we're doing it to sort ourselves out. In other words, to get clarity, to free ourselves up to be more creative, to essentially grow in wisdom, to achieve illumination, to do all these things that a spiritual path offers us. We're doing this for ourselves, but we're also doing it because I believe we also want to be of use in the world. That there's an innate desire in all of us and in the human being to be of value and to be of help in the world, to be of use. So put very simply, you could say that we're following a spiritual path to sort ourselves out and to be of use. If you wanted to say that in a grander way from an Eastern point of view, you would say, I'm following the spiritual path to gain illumination and to perform acts of seva. Seva is service from a Dharmic perspective. From a Christian point of view, you might say something like, I am seeking salvation and I perform acts of charity, or something like that. But a simpler way of saying it is perhaps just this, that I'm doing this. I'm sitting having tea with you in a forest clearing now. I'm following a spiritual path. I'm working on myself to sort myself out and to be of some use in the world, so that I can give. And the reason why I think the two is so important is, you know, that phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And any of you who've been involved in charitable work or who have just really focused on being of value and trying to help other people will know how easy it is to get burnt out if you're not able to resource yourself, if you don't have every so often just close your eyes and go within and find sustenance at a deeper level. That's one of the things I think that a spiritual path should do, is it should offer you spiritual sustenance. And so let's perhaps finish with that now. Let's close our eyes and just connect to this sense of spiritual sustenance, this lovely idea of this sacred grove with people from all over the world in community together in this forest clearing close to the earth, the energy of the sky above us flowing into us, and the energy of the earth beneath us flowing up into us. And the energy of the earth is bringing us a sense of stability and calm. And we breathe in deeply. The energy of the sky is flowing into us, meeting the energy of the earth within the center of our beings. And feeling strong and stable. Gradually, we become aware of being our own unique individual selves. We open our eyes, we look at the computer screen, we see that we're sitting in front of our computers at home, feeling fully grounded, connected in our hearts, and present. So many blessings, lots of love, and looking forward to hearing from you. Okay, bye.